programmers. Today we're going to talk about making a class in Swift. We'll make a couple classes. If you do not have a Mac with Xcode installed, you could use something like online Swift playground.run to have a playground that's just online. But I'm going to be using something called Xcode, and I'm going to, from Xcode, create a new, I'll do file, new playground, a new playground. And blank playground is fine. I'm going to give it a name of maybe like class test. And I think I've done this already to practice, so I'll put a 2 at the end. All right, so then we've got our playground. It starts out with a couple initial lines that we don't actually need for this example. To create a class in Swift, you'll start with the keyword class, and I'm going to create a rectangle class. And every rectangle has a length and a width. So because those would probably be the same data type, I'm going to start out with just one line var. They're a variable. You can change them. We would use let if we wanted to just set the length and width once and not change them. So we'll do something like that for the length and the width. And then from here, we could go ahead and create a rectangle, var rectangle, something like this. We don't have any print statements, so running that's not going to do a whole lot. I want to show how you would create, we created a property already, 2 properties, the length and the width for the rectangle. You can also have methods that go along, they're just functions that are part of a class. So to create a method, you can do func just like you would for a normal function, and then the name of the method. So I'll just do display, and I'm going to do a print statement saying my rectangle, and then I'll have my length times the width for showing everything about the rectangle. So now that that function or method is available, I can go ahead and call display on that rectangle, and we should see a print statement. So we go ahead and run it, and sometimes with the playgrounds you're going to see it like a circle up here saying it's running, and it just takes forever. Sometimes they seem to get stuck, but this one ran right away, and I was able to display the information about my rectangle. What if you don't want to set up initial values for the rectangle? So not all rectangles are like 2 feet by 3.5 feet. If you do this, I'm going to notice an error pop up right away. So if you do not provide the initial values for all of the different properties for your class, then you have to provide a special function that can be used to initialize. It's called an init, kind of like a constructor in some other languages. So with the init function, you could allow the user to pass in whatever they want the length to start out as and whatever they want the width to start out with. So I'm going to intentionally use exactly the same variable name for width to show how to deal with that, and a different variable name here. So if I want to set the length property of this rectangle, I can use length is equal to, and then the variable or the label here that was passed in, len. So there's no problem there. But on this other line, I've got the name of width is the same as the name of width. So how do we differentiate between the one that belongs to the class and the one that was passed into the init function? Well, then we can use the self in front of width. So that means this one right here, and the other thing means this right here. Oh, I forgot to say that my width is also going to be a double. That's why it's complaining. Okay, so that should fix the class part, but now when we're calling the init function down here, we need to make sure to pass in a couple different numbers, doubles, to be used for that length and the width. And we'll go ahead and hit run. Oops, let's see. Lots of errors. So what am I missing? Oh, because I did not provide the initial values, then the compiler at this point can't guess what data type these are. So I'm going to say that they're double. Oh, and they're both double. So I'm not sure I need to say it 2 times. So we'll just say it once. And if we go ahead and run, let's see. Oh, I'm missing the labels here because I'm used to working in so many other languages that don't have these type of labels that you use when you're calling the function. So now I'm specifying which of those inputs is the width and the length, and that works. If you're so like me, you're used to not having those labels there, there is a way to change the class for your init function and say underscore, so there is no label necessary when you're calling this function, and that'll work. One more thing I want to show you about classes. We could talk about them all day, but the last thing I want to talk about is how you would use inheritance. So in this example, I've got a rectangle. I'm going to make another class that inherits things from rectangle. I'll just call it colorful rectangle. So colorful rectangle, and to do inheritance, you'll do a single colon after the child class, and then you're going to do the name of the parent class. And that means my colorful rectangle has everything that the rectangle has, plus it probably has something special, like in this case, a color, and that's going to be a string. All right, so if we wanted to initialize this, then you would expect somebody to pass in a color. That's a string, and we can use that to initialize the color part. And then maybe you'd also want them to pass in 2 doubles, because we still need to initialize the length and the width. So unless you want to hard code those, we could have the user pass in 3 values to our colorful rectangle. Okay, so for this, I want my color property to be set to whatever was passed in, and then I want to call the init function for the parent class, and I could do that by calling super. The super class is another way to say the parent class, super init, and then I'm going to pass in the double that they gave me. So I'll do it. Oh, and I don't need, because I've got the underscores there, I don't need to have the label, so I can just pass in whatever they gave me. So, and then, let's see, it's trying to help me a little too much. Those tips, tool tips, are not actually helping. All right, here we go, and it should be able to know that this is the width right here. So let's create a colorful rectangle. C for colorful, colorful rectangle, and that init function needs 3 things. I'm going to do pink, that's my favorite color, and let's say it's a rectangle that's 1 by 3. And then I'm going to call the display function. And because of inheritance, the child gets everything that the parent has, so the child class can call that display function from the parent. And we could also print things about the child, like the color, which should be pink. Okay, if I didn't make any mistakes, and when we hit run, we should be able to see that our second rectangle is the dimensions 1 by 3, and it's got a color pink. All right, this video is already long enough, so I'm going to stop right there, but this is just a simple example with Swift and classes. Happy programming!